dangerous and being deported.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, I'm for my brother to be put in the best scenario possible, you know? For himself, like, and his family, you know? Just can't wait to put this behind us.
And just get through it as a family like we've always done.
The amount of resources it takes to do something like this. I wonder why the streets are flooded with heroin and cocaine and even more dangerous stuff now. Fentanyl and all kinds of shit that will kill you because, you know, that's what I'd be focused on. Every office has the decision to, you know, where they put their time and resources at. And I can't agree that this was the best way to do that, but that's just my opinion, you know?
Right, they sitting there, they went off a tip. They went off a tip from a whole piglet clan that trickled down to them. And they decided to spend taxpayer dollars on chasing down these two mothers that just been raising their shorty for 12 and a half years on their own. Were they spending money? Yes. It sounds like there might have been a whole family deal here. I'm wondering if the twins and the wives knew what was coming down the pipe through Armando, and they made a deal like, bro, they're going to put me here, and deport me, or I have to give them something. And as a family, they made the decision maybe to, all right, tell them this, that, the other, and me. Because the ladies, they're going to jail. One of them is already there, and the other one is going in. And not that they would be arguing and screaming. If he did rat them out and never said nothing about it, and it was just a surprise to them, then, you know, of course, they're not going to flip out on the podcast. We're not going to hear that. But I just wonder if they all knew, if they didn't know.
Meanwhile, all the other people just keep doing what I was doing, you know? Who knows, the next P&J is probably out there right now, building his empire right under his nose.
Oh, you got a point. You got a point. While the feds is running around chasing Val and Vivi, it's another Peter and Jay somewhere bringing in, fictional bath bombs. I don't even know if I'm supposed to say those two words separately, let alone together on YouTube, but it is what it is.
The first thing that a prosecutor will generally tell a cooperator or potential cooperator is that cooperation is an all or nothing proposition.
That's Michael Ferrara, the assistant U.S. attorney that worked J&P's case against El Chapo from the very beginning. He worked alongside Thomas Shakeshaft and Adam Fells.
And the government needs that to be true. When they say it, they absolutely mean it. And so the reason for a prosecution like that is that it's a betrayal of trust at some level, that they were given a second chance, they were given a clean slate, and decided to use drug proceeds for material things in a way that was very avoidable.
According to the government, in addition to the $4 million from DC that Val turned over to them, there was another $2.3 million that they never told anyone about. One day, a U-Haul truck arrived at the twins' older brother Armando's house in Austin, Texas. The truck was piled high with secondhand furniture. Hidden inside the furniture was stacks of cash, $2.3 million worth. Armando stored the money under his porch and sat on it for 4 years until 2015, when he started dispersing it to the wives in increments on average of $9,000 via US priority mail and UPS packages, as well as through gift cards. He would then pay himself a fee out of each delivery. The government accused the wives of living a lavish lifestyle, using the money to pay for luxury cars, designer purses, a Peloton exercise bike, as well as private school for their children, living costs like rent, and over $99,000 on vacations.
Not a Peloton. A Peloton? For real? Damn. They call that lavish, like a Peloton, some private school. Like, they was buying Bentleys and mansions and shit. It's a different story than buying a Peloton in a semester of private school.
The government clearly made the decision that that couldn't be tolerated, that they needed to send a message to other cooperators, to just society as a whole, that if you join the government's team, that has to have meaning from sort of beginning to end. You can't be a cooperator and hiding drug proceeds and living off of drug proceeds at the same time.
I feel that in Jay and Peter's sentencing memorandum, they spun it to the court like we basically benefited because we were given immunity. But fast forward 10 years, they come indict us. It's like they're trying to change the narrative. And I feel like the U.S. Attorney's Office today is very different than what it was back in 2008. And I feel that they didn't have a certain rule book to go by. And because this case was so big for Jay and Peter, I feel like there were mistakes made because it's never been done before on both sides. I don't fault anyone. I just feel like the U.S. Attorney's Office at the time, they didn't have the right guidance. We were given, certain benefits. I feel that today, those things that we were promised, that obviously they're frowned upon, but at the same time, you can't punish our family because that's something that somebody that was a representative of the government, which is Thomas Shakeshaft, he actually promised us these certain things when it comes to immunity or when it comes to us being able to keep a portion of the money. So if we were given these promises and we were led to believe that this was going to be embedded in their cooperation, then how is it when you fast forward 10 years, they're able to charge us on the things that we were supposed to be promised and we were given? On March 24th, 2011, the day I proffered, I spoke to Thomas Shakeshaft, which is the U.S. attorney that was in charge. He basically told me not to worry, I'm not going to be charged. I took that as reassurance that they would never prosecute me.
That was a dude talking in the halls. If it ain't on paper, they didn't say nothing. Sometimes when it is on paper, they still be like, I didn't say nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. For all of the guarantees and all of the concerns they had that they brought to this Shake Shaft's, attention, they got sold up the river.
At my proffer meeting was Thomas Shakeshaft, Michael Ferrara, and DEA agents that were involved in the case. Thomas Shakeshaft, he told Jay and Peter at a proffer session that he didn't want to wipe them out of their money. So these things are being said to our husbands. These things are being said to us. These things are not, they're not seizing certain things. Even though I'm saying that we paid for all of this stuff with drug proceeds from our husband's business, it's like they're allowing us to keep them. And so I don't understand how you can turn around and a decade later come back and then charge us.
The wives filed a motion to dismiss their charges.
That's it. It's a gotcha. That's what they do, man. It's a gotcha. Or somebody gonna turn around and hear what Shake Shaft is saying over his shoulder. That's a world of rattage over there, man. You know what I'm saying? They're like, wait a minute, hey man, this dude's over here treating these people with all kind of respect. A new prosecutor comes on, and that's the end of your reassurances right there. They're out the door.
In 2022, claiming that the twins' deal provided them with immunity from charges related to the twins' crimes. The wives argued that the government allowed them to keep the money, and that in a proffer session with US Assistant Attorney Thomas Shakeshaft, Val had tried to make the government aware there was extra money out there. But they didn't want to hear about it.
See there?
All they were focused on was getting El Chapo behind bars. A pre-trial hearing was...
They didn't want to hear about the bread. They didn't want to hear about it. I know it's a fake TV show, Snowfall, ripped and stolen from the real Rick Ross's life. But Franklin had, I don't know, 70 million. But Franklin was in a situation that was, very out in the open, and the government wanted to distance itself as much as possible from it. And they brought that 70 million, so they said, we don't want to deal with that. We don't have nothing to do with that. We don't talk about that. I picture that when I hear this. Listen, we got another 5 mil, 2 mil, 3 mil, whatever it is. Listen, do you have a tape with Chapo's voice on it? Let's talk about that right now. Then you get all these promises from the shake weight, Mr. Shake Shaft, and then none of that stuff happens. Here we are going into 2024, and these people still dealing with this situation.
Was held for Judge Matthew Kennelly to examine the evidence. The wives had planned to have US Assistant Attorney Thomas Shakeshaft testify. But 1 week before the hearing, on July the 19th, Shakeshaft died from chronic health problems and alcoholism.
Oh!
His alcoholism was blamed, in part, on the stress of the Flores case.
He died with his reassurances. Gone. Took the launch codes with him. Was he an alcoholic because of the Flores trial, or was he an alcoholic that was coming and telling them some drunk-ass reassurances?
A week before the hearing, on July the 19th, Shakeshaft died from chronic health problems and alcoholism. His alcoholism was blamed, in part, on the stress of the Flores case.
Wow.
Michael Ferrara was called by the government to be a witness. Here's what he had to say to us about the alleged immunity deal.
The way that it was presented in that defense is effectively that they were immunized forevermore, that they could do whatever they wanted in the future, which I don't know if that's a thing, period, in law enforcement, but it certainly wasn't here. And immunity like that can only come in writing, and it can only come from the U.S. attorney. And I'm positive that no immunity was issued by any U.S. attorney in Chicago. The wives were entitled to take, just blatant drug proceeds and do whatever they want with them.
Yeah, but there's no such thing as lifetime immunity. You know what I'm saying? That's why they tell you it's an all or nothing deal. You got to give them everything at one time. That's what makes me question. We always throwing bodies on them. My question is, if they had the opportunity to proffer those bodies and tell them, hey, these bodies exist, and get them bodies off their jacket, why wouldn't they do that? When they had the opportunity to do that, when they were cooperating against the biggest drug lord to the known world, the boogeyman. You know what I'm saying? So why wouldn't they use that opportunity? Because if they would have came back and found those bodies after the fact, they slamming them on their head. You can't get immunity in 2008 for something, and that immunity lasts, and in 2009 you smoke somebody and you still claiming immunity. That immunity doesn't work like that. You know what I'm saying? Which is what they're saying here, future immunity. Yeah, that it doesn't even make sense that they're saying there's no such thing.
The other comment I can make is that the whole thing is very unnecessary and unfortunate for their families. And I truly do believe that Pete and Jay cooperated to give their families a better life, and they had the opportunity to do that. And so to allow sort of like material things like,
if they told them about this money and they had this deal with the Shake Shaft, then that would say they told them about the money then. So if the government told them go ahead and use that money, and they're still using that money 10 years later, they're under the impression they're not committing a crime. Because if I told you that bread is there and you told me we're not dealing with that bread right now, then at the end of this conversation, I still got a duffel bag full of bread. The laundering part I don't see either, because I didn't hear about them filtering that money through nothing. You know what I'm saying? They told them, hey, I got this bread in this duffel bag. We don't want to deal with that money. So they kept the money. They said, do what you got to do with that money. They just kept going back to the duffel bag and getting money. They didn't take the duffel bag of money and build a Starbucks and launder money through there. I ain't hear that part either. I hear this guy sympathizing for their family. But he's like, oh, if there was a deal, it would have been in writing. And it would have had to go through this person, that person. The government going to have to bless it with paper. If they tell me I got future immunity and I get loose at a bar a year from now and smoke something, they're just going to blow that off? That don't even sound like a thing. I don't see... I do and I don't. I don't see the government starving you out while you're helping them and you're working for them and you're doing something for them that they need. But then again, we've seen that they hang them out to dry. They didn't even help them with the investigation. So you never know what you're going to get. It's just, either way, it ain't never going to benefit you. I'm sure that the CIA, I'm sure that the feds, they let dudes still get money that are confidential informants for them. These dudes, that's the only way they're going to get information is by being out there and doing it. So miss me with all the, we're holier than thou and you can't make no money. Nah, they're coming to get their envelopes too, I'm sure. They were collecting on behalf of the government. That's a fact. They sent Val to do that. And then if she's collecting, then there's a certain amount of money that they're like, we're not dealing with that right now. they have to stash that money. Where they gonna put it? They gotta hide that bread. Not necessarily from the feds, but from the wolves. I don't know.
Money, private schools, going on trips, the kind of things that they appear to have spent their money on. All of that is just stupid, in my opinion. I mean, to risk your freedom, risk the safety of your families over things like that, it's just sad. It's a sad thing for their families. It's just a really unfortunate thing that those kids were deprived.
Now, if the government didn't tell you nothing, they told you run that money, stop hiding money, don't hide money on us. If they told you that, and you was like, well, I got no money, and you was still running around wearing this, doing that, I absolutely agree with them. That was some stupid shit. We go back to square one. It wasn't just like the guys was helping them. You know, they even had Val in their proffering. You know what I'm saying? They was on the clock for these fools. If they had those conversations, and those conversations led to them saying, yeah, just keep a living for yourself, cool. But if y'all said y'all gave them all the money, and then you was just blowing that shit in their face, well, then you had what was coming to you.
Deprived of being around their dads for so long, and now for however long they're going to be deprived of being around their mothers in a meaningful way, all for something that was 100% avoidable if they just would have, you know, sort of kept their heads down, drove a used minivan and those kind of things. The flip side to that, though, is, I mean, in comparison to, again, like 2 tons a month of cocaine coming into Chicago and Chapo being prosecuted and all that, you're talking about a much smaller sum of money. And whether it sends the right message to use government resources like that to go after people who cooperated in a way that did a lot of good and had a lot of benefit to DOJ. So I think reasonable minds could differ on that, and whether it sends a strong enough message of what should happen that it's worth the potential downside.
According to the wives and their lawyers, it was the government that broke its promise to the Flores family. From the very beginning, the Twins Corporation and Pete's eventual testimony in court against El Chapo was done with the understanding that the rest of the family would be kept out of it. When questioned during the El Chapo trial, Pete testified that his wife, Viv, had been given immunity as part of his corporation deal.
You
the
know
point
what?
was made.
I believe I watched it the other day. I took a look and I skimmed through the video of his testimony, and he absolutely said that his wife was given immunity. Nobody contested that in court. Nobody stopped them and said, nah, your wife ain't got no immunity. And that's a court document on the record, so shouldn't that show that his wife had immunity?
Had been given immunity as part of his corporation deal. The point was made by Val and Viv's defense team that Pete spent 18 months being prepped by the government to take the stand against El Chapo, and at no point, including under oath in court, was there ever any challenge to the notion that the wives had immunity. The wives argue that the government knew that there was money they were using to live off, and that it was used to pay for their kids' education and their own living expenses. As single mothers, they had to move their families across the country every time Jay and Pete were transferred. Viv had to move 16 times due to viable threats on her life. The motion to dismiss the charges was denied. They each had a choice to take their case to trial, but they were advised that the negative public perception would make a trial difficult. Instead, they each pled guilty to money laundering conspiracy.
The cop being so confident on his side of the good old boys being right and saying, oh, it would have to been on paperwork, and they would have, it would have gone through people, and nobody would ever have told them to just spend money frivolously however they wanted. I think that's all stupid. He could be that confident, but what does he say when you tell him? Why didn't Charlie Webster ask him then? Why did Pete say she had immunity and nobody said nothing about it? Not the prosecution, nobody. Nobody said nothing about it.
Viv was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison and ordered to pay $504,858 in forfeiture.
Damn!
She went to prison on the 19th of October, 2023.
It's definitely scary because, Peter is a very, his presence he's like the rock of our family. I felt like I took his place when he had to leave. I took over and I had to be mom and dad and everything.
This is what kills me.
And I think that it's really, really definitely hard. I wasn't built for this. Definitely wasn't built for this, but a strong woman.
Evidently you built for it. You ain't broke yet. If this stretch don't break you, then you was definitely built for it.
A strong woman. And by far, I know I am. I think that my kids would definitely be very, this is a scar that probably would never, ever, ever, will be able to repair. We sit here and, we've been here with you, Charlie, for so many days. And, we talk about the kids and how we wanted to change their lives. And I feel like we're right back exactly where we never wanted to be.
Val received the same sentence as Viv, 3.5 years in prison, plus a $504,858 forfeiture.
But y'all took all the money. Y'all took all the money. Well, I'm gonna give you $500,000 from y'all took all the money. Y'all told me I can't have no bread. Imagine if they'd have took the bread and said, I'm gonna start flipping this bread somehow and start a business. Let's say they started a successful real estate business in the time that it took for them to, when the government told them, hey, go ahead, do what you got to do with that money. And they started flipping it and made a $10-15 million. Now they're like, hey, give me $500,000. They want $500,000 from each one of them. Took all the bread. Come on, man. Y'all petty.
3.5 years in prison, plus a $504,858 forfeiture.
Where you want me to get that
She
bread?
goes to prison on January the 10th, 2024.
I felt like I was being targeted.
Facts. I'm sure.
I felt like they wanted to make an example out of me.
Absolutely.
Which is hurtful. But after understanding, the government, the prosecutors that are in charge today of the case, I feel like they're only doing their job. And I know that if they were, the prosecutors back then, when my husband was cooperating, I feel like things would have been a lot different. I did actually testify at my hearing, and I did take accountability for money laundering. However, I did believe that I had immunity. Whether the government agrees with that or not, we're just going to agree to disagree. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to go to prison.
Right, you pay the cost for it.
Thing that I'm fighting with, that I'm struggling with. In court, I apologize to my children, for the pain I caused. And I just regret putting them through this again. But I feel really blessed with the time that I did get, because I got 3.5 years. And I feel like that was a blessing for me, especially this is my second time going away for money laundering. So I think that I'm very fortunate, because it could have went a lot different. That's for sure.
You might remember back in season 1 that Val has been to prison before. As a teenager, she fell in with the wrong crowd and was used as a drug mule. Before Jay, she was married to notorious Latin Kings boss Rudy Cato Rankel, also known as King Cato. Before Cato, she was married at 21 for a short time to Valentin Reveles, who was working for the Juarez cartel. While she was married to Reveles, she became caught up in his business dealings.
Back in 2000, in my prior marriage, I was married to a drug dealer, and he got indicted for drug conspiracy. I deposited money in the bank for him in my accounts, and that's what got me into trouble, and he ended up cooperating against me, and I went to prison for it. I received a 10-month split sentence where I was in prison for 5 months, and the other 5 months I was on house arrest. There's consequences to everything that we do. And sometimes when you're in love with someone, or sometimes when you're in a relationship, you don't think about certain things. You put yourself second, and you don't realize how this can affect you. And I just hope that by sharing my story. You know, I just want to bring awareness to like other women that have like walked in my shoes and that are going through this. And sometimes you're living that life and it's like a really fast lifestyle, right? And you don't realize the consequences that comes with this life. I'm hoping that other women can make better choices than I did. I mean, it could be anything, taking a small gift from someone, or just trying to be loyal to the person that you're with, whether it's your husband or your boyfriend, and just trying to, you know, get through life. It's like you don't realize that these choices that you make, they can affect you, and they can definitely change your life. And I'm hoping that other women can see my story and they can maybe think twice about it.
Change the life of everybody around you like that. And they don't have nothing to do with it. You know, I think about all these kids. I think about kids who had to suffer their parents' shit, regardless what it is, whether it be divorce, whether it be domestic violence in their household, whether it be all kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? The kids having to suffer it. Understand something as adults. The decisions that you make reverberate through time and space and affect everybody that you may or may not love. So keep that in mind. Some people be like, I don't give a this. All right, cool. Until it happens.
And they can maybe think twice about it and not put themselves in that position. Every choice you make, it has a consequence for sure. I went through a lot of trauma, and, you know, I talk about abusive relationships all the time. And I think that it definitely affected my thought process and the things that I've done. But I honestly thought that it'd be different when I met Jay. I felt like, you know, Jay was totally different from any person I had ever been with. And so I saw the good in him, and I really thought that I could change him. And I was happy that the judge acknowledged that in court. And he did say that, I know that it was because of you convinced your husband to change his life. And I think with that type of validation, I felt like, you know what, this is for something. And I feel like our lives could have turned out a lot different than what it is today. And I feel like if Jay didn't make the choice that he made to change his life, he probably wouldn't be here today. And, or me and my children, they probably would have wiped out our whole family.
Whole different deal.
How do you feel about and how you're going to cope with prison? Is there anything you've thought about? And has it come up in your head about your own safety?
In court, you know, there's a Mexican lady in there. She was sitting in the back row, and I could just feel her eyes burning through me. And when I was walking out, she just looked at me and smirked. And I was walking out of the building, out of the courthouse. She was recording me and taking pictures of me. And it's scary because at the end of the day, there are people looking for us. And these are things that we have to continue to live with. And it just doesn't feel good at all. It is scary. You know, I've been to prison before, so I know what it feels like, more so of just the fact of being alone.
I'm sure you could scrap, Val. I hope you could scrap. I hope you won this gangster in life that you was like super border jumping with the work and breaking out of jail and all of this madness. I hope you know how to scrap. It'd be a damn shame if you can't scrap, because you might have to scrap up a bitch or two in the joint. All right, so make sure you know what I'm saying? You know how to slip and get your ass out the way and handle your business. Just in case.
And I think that's what scares me. You know, just, you know, it's really hard to just, you know, do your time alone. And I think that's the part that scares me the most.
Val was with Jay as I was speaking to her after her sentencing. And I asked Jay what seeing his wife go through something that was ultimately caused by him felt like.
you can't even put what we're feeling, I guess, into words, and to see her struggle, like she don't have to say it to me, because I understand. My kids will have to lose their mom for a little bit, and that's hard, you know, like being the person that I am, no matter what, I'm always gonna like hold myself responsible because I, you know, made a vow to protect her and keep her and my children safe, and I failed. And this is all consequences of me not being there for her or not being there for my children. It's gonna be hard come, you know, the day she has to turn herself in, and she would never be alone. I could promise her that. She was always there for me. And I even felt, you know, I felt bad that I couldn't be with her at her sentencing, that I couldn't hold her hand and it's going to be like that as well because of her being in prison. I am 100% sure that they're not going to allow me to visit her for safety reasons. The BOP will never allow me to step foot in their facility. So, you know, that's another hardship that we're going to have to face. The punishment on its own, it's one thing, but the pain that we're actually going to feel from that punishment, it's totally on a different level. It's hard to cope with, right? But moving forward, I have faith in my wife and us and our family that we're going to get through this. And we're going to be together again and continue on. What we just started to do was to try to live, you know, a normal life as a family again. It's going to be put on pause for a little bit. And I just have, I'm going to have a lot of work to do. I have to measure up to all of who Val is. And that's the scary part to me, for sure. That could be a lot of things, but I could never fill her shoes.
If I wasn't with Jay, I probably wouldn't be going through this today, for sure. My life would be a lot different. But at the end of the day, I don't regret it. I love my husband. I love my children. I love my family. And I feel like I'll be okay. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I truly believe that this is the last obstacle. And I really know that once this is over, we can finally have a fresh start at life.
That's the attitude.
Val and Viv will be released from prison in early 2027. At the same time that Val and Viv were being sentenced for charges related to the spending of drug proceeds, El Chapo's wife, Emma Coronel Aspuro, was released from prison. She pled guilty to the distribution of cocaine, heroin, and over 1,000 kilograms of marijuana, as well as laundering narcotics proceeds and assisting her husband, El Chapo, in his drug business. At her sentencing, the fact that she facilitated El Chapo's escape from prison in Mexico was also brought up. She was sentenced to just 3 years in prison and was released after 21 months and 2 weeks, a little under 2 years.
Hold on. Even then, even in 2008 or whenever this went down with the twins and the wives, even then the wives didn't have all them charges of this, that, trafficking. They had no charges. Buddy's wife got charges and she got 3 years, and the wives, the cartel wives, got 3.5. That's crazy.
As Val and Viv were getting ready to go to prison, Emma was partying it up in Los Angeles. Val and Viv's case brought up questions about what this means for future cooperators and the message it sends when cooperation is often based on trust between the cooperator and the government.
There's no incentive. First of all, for certain people, there's no incentive at all. There's nothing you can do to convince them that they're just gonna take the football numbers. They're gonna take the assassination. They're gonna take whatever happens to them. It's the game that they play. It's the life that they chose. And then there's those that want a way out. But if that way out is not incentivized, if that way out comes with you just standing on my head for the rest of my life, then what did I jump on this side for? You know what I'm saying? When I could have just been over here fighting you the whole time anyway. Like, it's a bad look for them.
And the message it sends when cooperation is often based on trust between the cooperator and the government. I asked Michael Ferrara how important cooperators are when it comes to prosecuting a case.
It is the single most important thing. It is to be able to develop cooperators. Once a case reaches a certain level of complexity, and certainly when you're talking about like an international criminal organization as large as the Sinaloa cartel and all of the various things that feed the cartel and help it to exist, the corruption, all of that, you cannot put a case together without sort of like an insider point of view. I mean, you need a tour guide to say, like, this is how this worked, and this is who this guy was, and this is how we did this thing. So without that, those kind of massive cases just realistically don't come together. When the twins surrendered, I mean, they were certainly the largest drug traffickers in Chicago history, which is saying something. And at the time they surrendered, they were probably the largest in the United States. They were at the tippy top of the drug world, but they were largely insulated from like the violence and a lot of the things that come along with that. And I think at that time, like around 2008, Mexico was just exploding with narco violence. They were smart enough to realize that they were at the level where they either needed to become Chapo and everything that comes along with that,
Facts.
or turn against Chapo and try to basically hit the reset button.
We've been said that.
What they did was extraordinarily uncommon. They were at the top of the drug world. It is ultra rare where somebody in that position decides to hang it up before they're caught. That facilitated their cooperation in a way that was really unique. The twins were winning. Like, they were under no suspicion from the cartel or their customers or any of these other components of the drug trafficking and money laundering conspiracies in which they operated, that they were cooperating. So that enabled them to do all kinds of things that they otherwise would not have been able to do, resulted in a lot more people being prosecuted and much more robust prosecutions that were in some ways trial proof, because you had those recordings, you had the live seizures, you had undercover officers being inserted into the mix, all those kind of things. The flip side to that is because their cooperation was so long and ongoing, they were put under a microscope like few cooperators are. And so the US government certainly knew more about them than your average cooperator. I mean, in some ways you could say that they're penalized for their truthfulness, but I don't know that that's fair, because again, you sort of have to go back to that all or nothing proposition. And so even if you look at it as what it was, a 14-year sentence, had they not cooperated and had they been arrested, they absolutely would have died in prison.
Jay and Pete cooperated to give their family a chance at a better life. But taking down the world's most notorious drug lord was bigger than just the Flores family. I wondered what impact the twins' decision had on the drug epidemic, and whether actually catching El Chapo made a difference.
The macro level effect on drug trafficking, it's hard to claim it was positive at all. Drug trafficking still exists. The United States problems are just as bad, if not worse today than they were at any of the times when Chapo was caught or convicted, sort of any of those road markers. The cartels plural, as kingpins like Chapo are taken out, like the cartels tend to fracture and splinter. And the unfortunate trend has been like the most violent people, the people who are the most ruthless, the most willing to use violence to sort of enforce their business ways, are risen to the top of these now splintered organizations. They don't get along, they fight each other. And so that is ramping up the violent side in Mexico. And then on the supply side, I mean, again, things are as bad as they've ever been, with much more potent, much more dangerous drugs. On your question, like, what did removing Chapo do? If you look at it through that lens, like, there's no positive. But I don't think that's a fair way to look at it.
It's a fair way to look at it. There's no positive. You didn't change nothing. It's all for show. Who you showing it to? That's all they're doing. It's all for show. You're not winning the quote-unquote drug war that you've always been fighting against. Who? Against yourself? Stop it. Here we are, all these years later. They're still on top of the wives and all of this. But y'all didn't even do nothing by getting everything that these guys risked it all for you to give you this so that y'all can help them. It did nothing for nobody. It's all just a show, man. Them cops that are happy to catch an ounce outside and then put it on a table and pose in front of the camera. Hey, look what I got, an ounce and a starter pistol, you know? It's all a song and dance, but real people suffer in the process. All the song and dance, though.
But I don't think that's a fair way to look at it at all. you also just have to look at who Chapo was as a person, and he is one of the most prolific criminals in history. I mean, he is singularly responsible for thousands and thousands of deaths, whether they be drug-related deaths, whether they be deaths by violence, political corruption, where the tentacles extend all over the world. He was just a completely terrible person to leave out there in the world. And so removing him and the leadership structure that was around him,
it just led to
that the
somebody
twins were
else.
central to all.
Nah, it just led to somebody else doing the same shit that you was doing, that he was doing. You know what I'm saying? That's all it did. You got him off the block. So what? There's not another goon out there that's tying people to trees? Stop. These fools be looking for a silver lining. Go on with that shit. Ain't no silver lining, Tad.
That was around him, that the twins were central to all of that. Like, if you look at it through that lens, it was historic and an immensely beneficial, good thing that happened. But again, it's just a balance. Did Chapo end drugs? No, of course not. But did taking him out, did that remove a grave threat to everything from Mexican security to U.S. security, to just having an infrastructure in place that was exceptionally good at moving drugs north, pulling money and guns south, all of those things that, yes, was a positive to take him out of commission. The twins, they were supplying so much of the drug market, and in particular the cocaine market in Chicago and in the country, that when they left, I mean, there was certainly a temporary drop in drug levels. So, I mean, at their peak, they were importing about 2 tons a month of cocaine into the United States. About a full ton of that stayed in Chicago and was distributed in the Chicago area, which is just a staggering amount. And then the other ton went all over the place. It fed New York, DC, places on the East Coast. And so when that switch went from on off suddenly, and the twins weren't pushing that product into the United States, that definitely made levels drop and made things more expensive, all of that. And in the process of their cooperation, they took out people who were massive drug traffickers in their own right. So all of them left in a comparatively short period of time. It's getting people who were very bad for society out of the mix. And for a short period of time, it did make cocaine in particular harder to get.
Okay, you took all of these hustlers off the street. All you did was run up the number on the powder because somebody else was moving that shit right away. Took all of these people. You said, oh, these people, we had to get these people off the street. But you didn't get the dope off the street. The dope stood on the street. So this is why it's all a disingenuous campaign by the government, this war on drugs. Drugs are still out there.
But wherever there's that void, it's going to get very, very quickly filled, and it did. Cocaine levels rebounded, and right around that time is when the cartel started moving into the opioid markets. And Chapo and people like Chapo recognized that their profit margins were dramatically, dramatically higher with opioids, period, because they could grow poppies in Mexico. And then with synthetic opioids in particular, once they started to fully understand the benefits of fentanyl, how cheaply it can be manufactured, how potent it is, where if you get 1 kilo of fentanyl into the United States, it's the same as getting 50 kilos of heroin. And so, I mean, that's just a horrific formula for more drugs and more dangerous drugs getting pushed out on the street. If you look at it holistically, like, problems are worse after the twins' cooperation than they were before the twins' cooperation, which is a depressing thing to say, but I think it's a very true thing to say.
All for nothing.
Despite the work to stop it, the drug trade continues to grow. The removal of El Chapo didn't end the Sinaloa cartel. His 4 sons, together known as Los Chapitos, took over the cartel in his place. They are known as being richer, more powerful, and more violent than El Chapo ever was. Los Chapitos used corkscrews, electrocution, and hot chilies to torture their rivals and feed people to tigers. In January of this year, 2023, one of El Chapo's sons, Olivido Guzman Lopez, the logistics manager for the cartel, was arrested in a bloody operation resulting in 29 deaths. In September, Olivedo was extradited to the US. The other three sons continue to run the cartel. One of them, Ivan Archivaldo, is now on the DEA's most wanted list, with a $10 million bounty on his head, a higher bounty than his father El Chapo ever had.
Didn't they all get popped recently?
As for El Chapo, he's still trying to appeal his sentence.
Yeah, didn't Chapo say he was a patsy? Chapo said he was used. I tell you what, the amount of rumor and innuendo and bullshit that I've heard since I started this series, and in contrast with the things that I've learned and understand and have perspective on and see differently now, it's a whole different story than what I even thought. But it's the reason I got into it was because I was less than 6 degrees of separation from the world of the twins and Kato and Val, just on the music side, you know what I'm saying? Let alone, the opportunity to cover this comes, and I take it as my first opportunity, and it works out for me. It was something that I was interested in because it hit close to home, you know what I'm saying? It hit close to home. We were hoping that these labels were the labels that were going to change shit for us in Chicago, But I've heard so many bullshit stories and things that were cleared up here, and we're going to get to that eventually. Eventually, I have a live stream where we discuss our thoughts on all of it, from beginning to end.
Over the past 3 years, I've gotten to know the Flores family really well. In sharing their story, they opened up about things they've never spoken about before. 15 years ago, that one decision to turn themselves in set off a domino effect that led to where they are today. I couldn't help but wonder if Jay still felt it was all worth it. How do you feel about that decision you made all those years ago now to turn yourself in?
I don't live with regrets, Charlie. I trust in God that He has led us to this point. I believe that everything that's good that came out of my decision was from Him, and I feel like everything that hasn't been good has been because of our personal mistakes. And I would never want to change what, the positive outcome that He has blessed us with. We're far removed from that life, except for our legal issues. I've been home almost 3 years. It's been 15 years since we made that decision and we decided to turn our life around. And 15 years I got to be a husband and a father, even though I was away from my wife and children for 12 years. I still got to see my children grow and become these amazing young men and young women, and I get to still be a father to my children. I feel like even though it was from afar, I still was able to feel that, and there's nothing more important to me than that. I feel like that it's a blessing in itself that I would never second guess or never want to change. I still have my wife. I still have my family, and it was what I did it for in the first place.
And think about it, y'all. At any time, any one of those women could have bailed on any one of the men and vice versa. So evidently, all of the shit that we laugh at, the relationships withheld the test of a lot of shit.
I'm looking forward to, all the amazing opportunities that await for us in the future. And I know we're going to get through this. I feel like we have to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. And I honestly feel there's a lot more good. Us sharing our personal lives with you, with the world, it's about our suffering. It's about all these small decisions just snowball into a whole lot of suffering for so many lives, for so many of our family members, for our children, for us, and it continues.
Absolutely.
And it's a fight to just want to make things right. And I know that there's not many people who have walked in those shoes as me and my brother, who has made it that far up into the cartel life or drug trafficking life. And And there's a reason why my brother and I decided to change our lives along with our family, with our wives. We want to change our life because we would never choose anything else but our family. And I just have this burning desire to not let this go, not let, all my children suffering, my wife suffering, for it to be for nothing. I feel like we were meant to be here. We were meant to come this far. And I feel like it was to share into our testimony, to our past life, and hopefully inspire someone, not just in drug trafficking, to say, hey, you know what? I was on the opposite end of something really bad. And through support, through my family, I had to endure some sacrifice. It was suffering, but after that suffering, because of choices I made, that I was able to turn that into something positive, something that could bring hope to other people, right? Something that could make so that my children could go back and say, hey, you know what? I spent all these years without my father, without my mom. But you know what? It came for a good cause, because my dad was able to change his life around, and he had an impact on this war on drugs. He had an impact on something that he helped create. And that's important to me. Like, I have the potential that potentially, right, change the way the war on drugs has been attacked or dealt with for the last 50 years.
That sounds like wishful thinking. Listen, I say one thing. Great speech. Season 1, I ain't cut them no slack. Season 2, there really hasn't been many decisions for me to attack them on. I wondered if there was any sense of accountability, and that sounds like it right there. She asked him if it was worth it. And in the scheme of things, he's like, man, I had, regardless, I got to be with my children. I get to turn this negative into a positive. You know what I'm saying? This whole, help the war on drugs, didn't leave a dent in it. It's worse off than when you were in it. And the federal government will forever be fueling it and fumbling it all at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they're doing. Just think of the decisions they make. They make the decision to pick on you, your family, your wives, while the war on drugs is just war on drugs. The soldiers in the war on drugs are emaciated and malnourished. And there's nothing really. That's a slow moving boat right there. So that part is wishful thinking, that you're able to put a dent in that. But as far as the rest, you know what I'm saying? Hey, man, salutes to you.
Jay is now working with dynamic police training to educate law enforcement on the intricacies of the drug world. He runs a course.
Frank Abagnale. Catch me if you can.
He runs a course called From Kingpin to Educator.
I did my first conference, my first law enforcement conference. I was a guest speaker for 450 officers in August. And it's state, federal law enforcement and some local law enforcement. And by chance, I was speaking to these law enforcement officers, and I got pulled to the side by 4 DEA officers that were part of the SWAT team that raided my home when they came in to arrest Val.
Oh, how nice.
And
what kind of irony is that? Like, don't pull me aside, bro. Y'all violated.
That is a moment where it's like, wow, like they were in my house not so long ago and they came and arrested my wife, but yeah, here I am working with them, right? And I guess it's just another unbelievable mark in our story that it's hard to, it's probably hard for people to believe or hard for people to understand. And it's been like that for a lot of my life. And I'm just thankful and grateful for the opportunity that I will be able to do that moving forward. And it makes me feel good. I feel like I'm finally doing something positive, especially with something that failed me and has brought so much hardship and heartache. And now here I am, in a room full of law enforcement who are eager to listen to me, eager to learn. And it's talk about coming full circle, right? Like, I started on one end and now here I am, working with law enforcement.
Relax. You're not wearing a badge, right? Calm down. Okay, they didn't adopt you all the way yet. Look what the last group of cops did to you and lawyers.
Across the country, around the world, sharing, I guess, all my suffering, right? It's talk about coming full circle, right? Like, I started on one end and now here I am, working with law enforcement, across the country, around the world, sharing, I guess, all my suffering, right? And everything I've learned since I was 7 years old in drug trafficking. It's kind of weird because people are like, wow, yes, you're helping the same people that are imprisoning your family, right? But no, I don't look at it that way, not at all. I understand the system more than anyone, and I don't carry no malice.
Are the classes and
You better than me, bro.
and conferences something that you're going to do moving forward now?
Yes, it's my plan. I'm moving forward. I'm doing conferences and classes. I have 16 set dates already. And I will continue working on those classes as much as I'm able to get booked, right? And as long as law enforcement officers, here around the country, around the world are open to hear me, then I'm going to be there. I always say that, well, for my brother, there's not anyone out there that has the knowledge and expertise that we have. And I said this, to law enforcement, like, I was not made in Mexico. I was born in Chicago, made in America. And if I could share this with law enforcement, share all the knowledge and the expertise that I think I have, and hopefully they could take that and use it in a positive way. I think to me, that's the biggest reward. I'm one of those persons that believe that anything's possible, especially you look at my life and where I came from and where I ended up at, and, our family struggles. And to have the opportunity that I have, it wasn't given to me, Charlie. I had to create it. I had to push for it. I had to fight for it. And I'll continue to fight for what I believe in. And I think that we all have it in us. And we just got to look for that strength and courage to go through with it.
Alongside the classes, Jay is looking for more steady work. He's been working on a resume that he showed me, and is hopeful that someone will take a chance on him. Jay's dedicated to turning his life around and writing a new legacy for the Flores name. But it's not always that easy when you have a criminal record like Jay's that follows you through life. Half of the 78 million Americans with a criminal record have difficulty finding a job and making a living. Nearly a third of federal inmates don't find work at all after they're released. Will someone like Jay, or anyone with a criminal record, get a second chance?
Can you read this? Can I read it?
Yeah, sure, you can read it. It's email that.
Do you want to read it?
No, you can read it.
Okay. I recently came across something unusual, a tweet from Elon Musk that spoke to me. Drug dealers know more about running a business than 95% of college professors. So here I am today, taking a leap of faith and sending you my resume. I worked on it with intentions of sending it to a like-minded business person like yourself. My goal is to utilize the business skills I've acquired in the drug trade and apply these street smarts toward doing something positive in the corporate world. Although I chose the wrong path in life, it has helped me shape me into the businessman I am today. I am a senior operations executive and international logistics specialist. My twin brother and I built a $2 billion drug trafficking enterprise from nothing. We encountered far more obstacles than your average corporation. But with determination and strong will, I pushed through day-to-day challenges by focusing on innovative solutions. I acquired the skills needed to do a thorough risk assessment and quickly mitigate any potential losses, because in our business, there was less room for error. Can I carry on? With 20 plus years of extensive experience, I gained the entrepreneurial skills necessary to successfully develop, structure, manage, nurture, innovate, and grow any business. Despite being driven and having a fierce hunger for success, I am relatable, willing to learn, adapt easily, and have the interpersonal skills needed for team building and customer relations in any industry. Although I was born into the world of drug trafficking, at the height of my career, I decided to denounce that life and take a road less traveled. At the young age of 26, my brother and I gave it all up, voluntarily turned ourselves into the authorities, dismantled our organization, and served a 14-year prison sentence at a federal correctional institution in a special WITSEC unit. Today I live under a new identity, and I'm a firm believer in redemption and second chances. I know I'm here for a reason and have a bigger purpose in life to fulfill. I'm in the process of rewriting my story, and with your help, I hope to remove stigmas and leave a positive imprint in this world.
These guys would have thrived in any business they were in. It happened to be the dope trade. I think if their family sold fabric, if their family sold tamales, if their family sold jewelry, whatever their family sold, they would have been good at it. He didn't cover up nothing in that resume. He was being as honest, I guess, as he could be. And Elon Musk, you gotta put your money where your mouth is, bro. This was probably the best episode this season on season 2. You know, before I got into this, I didn't know that they didn't have the choice to be in the game or not. They started at 70 years old under their father, man. We say, oh, they could have made better decisions later on. We all could have. I had the opportunity to get bricks at that age and get money. I'm going to get them bricks and get that money. Not knowing the consequences of what's to come. Only in hindsight we see that. Only now, with their story, can we teach that to other people? Can they teach it to other people? Which is the whole point of Jay's resume at the end.
Stay tuned for the Flores Twins docuseries and scripted series coming soon.
And there it is. Docuseries and scripted series coming soon. And guess who's going to be here to cover both? This guy right here. And you're going to be there with me.